Captain Maya Torres stood at attention in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, watching 300 alien dignitaries pretend to care about justice while they publicly humiliated her for doing her job too well. "Captain Torres," announced Councillor Blethrix, a purple blob with delusions of grandeur, "you stand accused of excessive aggression in your handling of the Kepler colony incident." Excessive aggression? Right. Because apparently saving 3 entire colonies from pirate raiders was somehow too much violence for these peace-loving bureaucrats. Never mind that her excessive aggression had prevented the deaths of 2 million civilians. Never mind that she'd done it with minimal casualties and surgical precision. What mattered was that she'd made the Council's own security forces look like the incompetent desk jockeys they actually were. Furthermore, Blethrix continued, his voice carrying that special tone reserved for maximum pomposity. "Your unauthorized deployment of human military tactics has been deemed culturally insensitive to our pirate rehabilitation programs." Maya bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood. Pirate rehabilitation programs. These morons actually believed you could reform genocidal raiders with group therapy and interpretive dance. The only thing those pirates understood was superior firepower, which Maya had delivered in spades. The ceremonial part came next, because aliens loved their ceremonies almost as much as they loved their bureaucracy. Councillor Vorthak, who looked like a walking Christmas tree had mated with a traffic cone, stepped forward carrying a silver tray. "By the authority vested in this council, we hereby strip you of your rank and command privileges." He reached for the insignia on Maya's uniform with tentacles that moved like arthritic snakes. "Our actions, while technically successful, demonstrate a concerning disregard for our peaceful conflict resolution protocols." Peaceful conflict resolution protocols. Maya watched her captain's bars disappear into Vorthak's slimy grip and wondered how many civilians would die while these idiots held peace talks with genocidal maniacs. The worst part wasn't the demotion. The worst part was having to stand there with a respectful expression while 300 alien bureaucrats nodded sagely, but convinced they were upholding some higher moral standard. Maya had spent 15 years climbing the ranks, earning every promotion through blood, sweat, and keeping colonies from becoming crater-filled memories. She'd pulled off tactical miracles that military academies would study for centuries. And here she was, getting lectured by creatures who couldn't organize a bake sale without forming 17 committees and filing 83 environmental impact reports. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Blethrix asked, though his tone made it clear that anything she said would be ignored. Maya looked out at the sea of alien faces, most of whom had never seen actual combat, let alone the inside of a military vessel. These were the beings who made policy decisions about warfare from the safety of their climate-controlled chambers, protected by the very human soldiers they loved to criticize. "No, Counselor," she said, her voice steady. "I have nothing to say." Because what was the point? They'd already made up their minds. They needed a scapegoat for their own failures, and the human who'd embarrassed them by actually solving problems was the perfect target. As she walked out of the assembly hall, Maya heard the whispered conversation starting behind her. The other human officers in attendance looked like they'd swallowed live grenades. Captain Rodriguez caught her eye and gave her the slightest nod of respect. At least her own people knew what she'd really accomplished out there. The massive doors of the assembly hall closed behind her with a sound like a tomb sealing shut. Maya Torres, former captain, current nobody, stood alone in the corridor and wondered what fresh hell awaited her next. She didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, Maya found herself standing on the docking bay of Station Gamma 7, staring at what could generously be called a spaceship if you'd suffered recent head trauma and were legally blind. The cosmic reject looked like someone had taken a perfectly good cargo hauler, put it through a blender, and then tried to reassemble it using nothing but duct tape and misplaced optimism. Scorch marks decorated the hull in patterns that suggested either artistic expression or repeated catastrophic failures. Maya was betting on the failures. "Commander Torres?" The voice belonged to a kid who looked like he'd barely graduated from flight simulator training. "I'm Jake Morrison, your pilot." Maya winced. "It's just Torres now. And please tell me you have more experience than you look like you have." Jake's grin was the kind of cheerful obliviousness that made Maya want to find the nearest airlock. Well, I've only crashed twice this month, and both times were totally not my fault. The first time, that asteroid came out of nowhere. I mean, who puts asteroids in an asteroid field without proper warning signs? And the second time. Dear God, Maya muttered. She was going to die out here, and it wasn't going to be in glorious combat. It was going to be because her pilot had somehow managed to crash into a planet while in hyperspace. And this is Petra Kowalski. Our engineer, Jake, continued, gesturing to a woman who was currently kicking the ship's hull with steel-toed boots. The hyperdrive's making that whining noise again, Petra announced without looking up. I think it's depressed. Machines don't get depressed, Maya said automatically. Petra gave her a look that suggested Maya had just claimed the sky was made of cheese. This one does. Last week it refused to start until I played it some classical music. Now it only responds to percussive maintenance. She demonstrated by hitting the hull with a wrench the size of a small tree. The ship's engines immediately hummed to life. See? It just needed encouragement. Maya was beginning to understand why this assignment was considered punishment duty. These people weren't just incompetent, they were aggressively incompetent. It was like someone had specifically searched for the 3 worst crew members in the galaxy and decided to put them all on one ship, just to see what would happen. And our communications officer? Maya asked, though she was already dreading the answer. That would be me. Ben Okafor appeared from around the ship's landing strut, holding what appeared to be a communications array that had been partially melted. I'm still working on mastering the alien frequency protocols. Yesterday I accidentally hailed the Draconian Empire and somehow challenged their emperor to single combat. The day before that, I mixed up the diplomatic channels and declared war on the Peaceful Garden Coalition. The Peaceful Garden Coalition, Maya repeated slowly. The same Peaceful Garden Coalition whose entire military consists of 3 patrol boats and a strongly worded complaint department. Yeah, they were pretty upset. Sent me a very polite letter explaining why war was inadvisable. It was actually kind of sweet. Maya closed her eyes and counted to 10. Then she counted to 20. Then she seriously considered just walking away and living as a hermit on some uninhabited moon somewhere. This was her crew. These 3 disasters waiting to happen were apparently the best the Galactic Council could scrape together for her new assignment. The same assignment that involved maintaining peace and stability in Sector 7. Which was bureaucrat speak for go babysit the most worthless region of space and try not to embarrass us further. Sector 7 was where careers went to die. It was full of failing colonies, minor trade disputes, and exactly the kind of boring patrol work that would ensure Maya never saw anything resembling real action again. The irony was perfect. She'd gone from commanding 3 destroyers and a battlecruiser to nursemaiding 3 people who probably couldn't find their own ship in a parking lot with a map and a GPS beacon. All right, Maya said, boarding the Cosmic Reject and trying not to notice how the floor creaked under her feet. Let's get this over with. Jake, plot a course for our patrol route. Try not to hit anything on the way out of the docking bay. No promises, Jake called cheerfully from the pilot's seat. But I'll do my best. As the ship lurched into motion with all the grace of a drunk rhinoceros, Maya wondered if this was how her military career was going to end. Not in a blaze of glory, but in a series of increasingly ridiculous accidents orchestrated by the 3 least competent people in the galaxy. The Cosmic Reject cleared the station and jumped to hyperspace with a sound like someone torturing a bagpipe. Maya settled into the captain's chair, which immediately collapsed under her weight. Don't worry, Petra called from engineering. I can fix that. I just need a bigger hammer. This was going to be a very long assignment. 2 months into babysitting the galactic equivalent of a daycare center, Maya had learned to expect disaster. What she hadn't expected was the encrypted message that appeared on her personal terminal at 0300 hours, marked with priority codes she hadn't seen since her days commanding actual warships. The transmission was brief, untraceable, and absolutely terrifying in its implications. Admiral Vex's entire battle fleet had been obliterated. 7 heavy cruisers, 14 destroyers, and the flagship Galactic Pride had been reduced to space debris in less than 6 hours. The Void Syndicate, a terrorist organization that had been dismissed as a minor nuisance, had apparently upgraded from petty theft to fleet-killing superweapons. The message was signed by Councillor Blethrix himself, the same purple blob who'd stripped her of rank 2 months earlier. Now he wanted her help. The hypocrisy was so thick Maya could have cut it with a plasma torch. Commander Torres, the message began, because apparently her demotion was conveniently forgotten when they needed her to clean up their mess. The situation requires immediate attention from someone with your particular skill set. The Void Syndicate has established a fortified base in the Crex Nebula. Intelligence suggests they possess technology capable of neutralizing our standard military response. Translation: their golden boy Admiral Vex had gotten his tentacles handed to him, and now they needed someone who actually knew how to fight. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to infiltrate their base and retrieve critical intelligence regarding their new weapons technology. This operation is classified beyond standard protocols. Success will be noted in your permanent record. Failure will result in disavowal of all knowledge of your mission. Maya had to admire the Council's approach to personnel management. When she succeeded, they'd take credit. When she failed, she'd take the blame. It was like watching a master class in political cowardice. The real kicker came in the final paragraph. Due to the sensitive nature of this mission, you must utilize your current crew and vessel. Standard military assets cannot be made available without alerting enemy intelligence. They wanted her to infiltrate the most heavily fortified terrorist base in the galaxy using a ship held together with hope and good intentions, crewed by 3 people who could barely operate a coffee machine without causing an intergalactic incident. Maya stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it and walked to the bridge where her crew was engaged in their usual routine of barely controlled chaos. Jake was trying to navigate around a small asteroid field and had already bumped into 2 rocks that any competent pilot would have seen coming from 3 star systems away. Petra was underneath a control panel, apparently trying to convince the navigation computer to work by singing to it in what sounded like Polish. Ben was at the communications station, successfully maintaining radio silence by accidentally jamming their own transmitters. These were the people the Galactic Council expected her to use for a suicide mission against enemies who had just destroyed the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Maya found herself smiling for the first time in months. "Jake," she called out, "how do you feel about doing something incredibly dangerous and probably illegal?" Jake's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Does it involve flying through things I'm not supposed to fly through?" "Definitely." "No. And will people probably shoot at us?" "Almost certainly." "I'm in. What about you, Petra?" Petra emerged from under the control panel, grease-stained and grinning. "Will I get to blow things up?" "If we do this right, you'll get to blow up things that the galaxy's finest military minds said were impossible to destroy." "Now you're talking my language." Ben looked up from his console, where he'd apparently managed to accidentally intercept someone's grocery list from 3 sectors away. "And me? Me?" "Ben," Maya said seriously, "I need you to be exactly as chaotically unpredictable as you always are. Can you do that?" "I can definitely do that. In fact, I don't think I can do anything else." Maya looked at her crew of misfits and realized something the Galactic Council had missed. These weren't the worst people for the job. They were the perfect people for the job. Admiral Vex had failed because he'd tried to fight the Void Syndicate using conventional tactics and superior firepower. The Syndicate had been ready for that. They'd prepared for everything the galaxy's military doctrine had to throw at them. What they hadn't prepared for was 3 people who couldn't execute a conventional tactic if their lives depended on it. Led by someone who'd built her career on doing the impossible when nobody was watching. "All right, people," Maya said, settling into the captain's chair that Petra had finally fixed with what appeared to be industrial-strength space glue. "Let me tell you about the Void Syndicate, and why we're going to do something that every military expert in the galaxy would call suicide." The Cosmic Reject changed course toward the Crex Nebula, carrying the most unlikely strike team in galactic history toward a mission that would either save civilization or provide a very expensive fireworks display. Maya was looking forward to finding out which. The Crex Nebula looked like someone had spilled rainbow paint across the cosmos and then set it on fire. It was beautiful, deadly, and currently home to the most impregnable fortress anyone had bothered to build in this corner of the galaxy. The Void Syndicate base hung in the nebula's heart like a mechanical spider, its hull bristling with enough weapons to sterilize a small moon. Sensor arrays swept the surrounding space in overlapping patterns that would detect anything larger than a space pebble. Defense platforms dotted the nearby asteroids like metal flowers designed by very paranoid gardeners. Maya studied the tactical display and grinned. It was perfect. Every defense was designed to stop conventional military assault. Every weapon placement assumed the enemy would approach with standard tactics and overwhelming force. "Jake," she said, "I need you to do something that's going to sound completely insane." "My favorite kind of mission brief," Jake replied, cracking his knuckles. "Lay it on me. See that debris field from Admiral Vex's fleet? I want you to fly straight through it, hit that piece of wreckage there, and crash us directly into the base's lower docking bay." Jake blinked. "You want me to crash on purpose?" "I want you to crash in exactly the right way. Can you do that?" "Can I crash in a specific way?" Jake's grin was the kind of expression that should have come with a safety warning. "Maya, I've been crashing into things my entire career. Finally, someone wants me to do it on purpose." The cosmic reject dove toward the debris field like a meteor with anger management issues. Jake threaded them between chunks of destroyed warships, his terrible piloting skills somehow transforming into exactly the kind of erratic flight pattern that would look like battle damage to anyone watching. "Petra," Maya called back to engineering, "we're going to need the hyperdrive to fail catastrophically right before impact." "Not actually fail, just look like it failed." "You want controlled catastrophic failure?" Petra's voice carried the kind of joy usually reserved for birthday parties and surprise promotions. "I've been waiting my whole career for someone to ask me to break something on purpose." The sound of enthusiastic tool usage echoed from the engine room. Sparks began shooting from various control panels, and the lights flickered in patterns that suggested the ship's electrical system was having some kind of seizure. "Ben," Maya continued, "I need you to send a distress signal. But not a normal distress signal. I need you to send the kind of garbled, half-coherent mess that makes it sound like we're pirates who got caught in the crossfire and are too stupid to know we're about to crash into their base. So basically, I need to communicate exactly like I always do. Exactly like you always do." Ben began transmitting what sounded like someone trying to speak 15 different languages simultaneously while having a mild stroke. Within seconds, Asian. The Void Syndicate's communication channels were filled with confused chatter as their operators tried to figure out what the hell the damaged ship was trying to say. The plan was working perfectly. Maya watched the base's defense systems tracking their approach, weapons powering up to destroy them, and then hesitating. Because who would be stupid enough to deliberately crash into a fortress? Obviously, this was just another piece of battle wreckage from the fleet engagement, piloted by some incompetent pirates who'd gotten caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. The cosmic reject slammed into the base's docking bay with all the subtlety of a meteor strike. The impact threw everyone against the nearest wall, triggered 17 different emergency alarms, and somehow managed to perfectly position them next to an access hatch that led directly into the base's central corridor. Maya picked herself up off the floor and checked her crew. Jake was unconscious but smiling. Petra had somehow managed to keep working through the crash and was currently welding their airlock to the base's hull. Ben was lying in a pile of communication equipment, still transmitting gibberish that was apparently convincing the base's security teams to evacuate the sector because they couldn't figure out what language he was speaking. "Phase 1 complete," Maya announced. "Now for the hard part." They moved through the base like ghosts that had learned their haunting techniques from a Three Stooges marathon. Jake, now conscious but slightly concussed, kept getting lost and accidentally finding security checkpoints from behind, where the guards weren't expecting anyone. Petra's approach to locked doors involved hitting them with progressively larger tools until they opened, a technique that somehow bypassed every electronic security system in the facility. Ben attempted to hack into the base's communication network and instead managed to broadcast alien soap operas to every speaker in the complex, creating a distraction that no security manual had ever accounted for. Maya followed behind them, watching 20 years of tactical training get turned completely on its head. Every time her crew did something wrong, it turned out to be exactly right. Every mistake led them closer to their objective. Every disaster opened a path that conventional infiltration would never have found. They reached the Central Intelligence Core without firing a single shot or triggering a single alarm, mostly because the base's security system was too busy trying to figure out what the hell was happening to actually stop them. Maya plugged her data extractor into the core computer and watched terabytes of classified information flow into her portable drive. Weapon specifications, fleet positions, communication codes, and most importantly, the complete organizational structure of the Void Syndicate, including the identity of their inside source in the Galactic Council. Maya stared at the data scrolling across her screen and felt her blood turn to ice. This wasn't just terrorism. This was treason on a scale that would reshape the galaxy. "Got what we came for," she announced to her crew. "Time to go." "Should we blow this place up?" Petra asked hopefully, hefting what appeared to be enough explosives to level a city block. "Not yet," Maya said, though she filed the option away for later. "First, we need to get this information to someone who won't immediately bury it to protect their political career." The problem was, Maya was rapidly running out of people she could trust. They made it back to the Cosmic Reject without incident, mostly because the base's security teams were still trying to figure out why their communication system was broadcasting draconian cooking shows and whether the structural damage in Section C had been caused by enemy action or someone trying to repair a door with a plasma cutter. Maya was reviewing the stolen intelligence when her blood ran cold. The data wasn't just about Void Syndicate operations. It was about a carefully orchestrated plan to eliminate human influence in the Galactic Council, starting with the systematic destruction of every competent human military commander. Admiral Vex hadn't stumbled into a trap. He'd led his fleet directly into an ambush, following coordinates provided by his Void Syndicate contacts. The attack on his fleet hadn't been a terrorist operation. It had been a business transaction. And Maya's mission wasn't a rescue operation. It was supposed to be her execution. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Send the disgraced human commander on an impossible suicide mission. When she died in the attempt, blame her for the mission's failure. Use her death as proof that humans were too reckless and aggressive for military leadership positions. Problem solved, political careers preserved, and the galaxy's most effective human commanders conveniently eliminated. What they hadn't counted on was Maya's crew of magnificent disasters actually succeeding. "Jake," Maya called out, her voice carefully controlled. "How quickly can we get out of here?" "Depends on what's chasing us and how badly they want us dead. Assume the worst on both counts." Jake's fingers flew over the navigation controls. "In that case, we can be in hyperspace in 30 seconds, assuming Petra can keep the engines from exploding." "The engines won't explode," Petra called from engineering. "They might catch fire, turn purple, or start singing opera, but they won't explode." "That's oddly reassuring," Ben commented, then paused. "Wait, why would they sing opera?" "Long story. Something about the fuel mixture, and that time I accidentally mixed in some of my grandmother's vodka." Maya was about to ask for clarification when her communication console lit up with an incoming transmission. The caller ID made her stomach drop. Admiral Vex himself, calling on a secure channel that should have been impossible for him to access. Maya accepted the transmission, and the main screen filled with the image of a creature that looked like an octopus had been crossed with a peacock and then given a superiority complex. Admiral Vex's tentacles writhed in what Maya had learned to recognize as barely contained fury. "Commander Torres," he said, his voice carrying the kind of oily politeness that usually preceded attempted murder. "Congratulations on your successful infiltration. I trust you found the intelligence you were looking for." "Admiral," Maya replied evenly, "I found exactly what I was looking for. Excellent. Then you'll understand why I can't allow you to leave the nebula alive. Space around the cosmic reject suddenly filled with Void Syndicate ships, fighters, gunboats, and what appeared to be a heavily modified battle cruiser, all moving to surround Maya's position. You see, Commander, your success creates certain complications for my ongoing operations. The Galactic Council believes you died heroically in the attempt to gather intelligence. It would be rather awkward if you showed up alive with evidence of my business arrangements. Maya watched the tactical display as enemy ships moved into attack formation. Any conventional military commander would be trapped. Any normal crew would be dead within minutes. Fortunately, Maya had stopped being conventional the day she'd been assigned to the Cosmic Reject. "Jake," she said calmly, "remember when you accidentally flew us through the center of that black hole last month?" "You mean when I got confused about which way was up and down doesn't really apply in space anyway?" "That's the one. I need you to do something similar, but with more style." "More style than accidentally discovering a new form of faster-than-light travel?" "Much more style." Jake's grin was visible from 3 star systems away. "Now you're talking." The Cosmic Reject suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest enemy ship, spinning like a demented ballet dancer and broadcasting what sounded like Petra singing Polish folk songs at maximum volume. "Petra," Maya continued, "remember that time you fixed the weapons array by rewiring it through the coffee machine?" "You mean when I accidentally turned our morning espresso into a particle beam cannon?" "Can you do it again?" "Can I weaponize breakfast?" "Maya, that's not even a question." The sound of enthusiastic engineering echoed from the back of the ship, followed by the distinctive hum of jury-rigged weapons systems powering up. "Then," Maya finished, "I need you to jam every communication frequency in the nebula." "Can you do that?" "I've been accidentally doing that since we got here." "Now you want me to do it on purpose?" "On purpose, and with style." "Style I can definitely do." The space around them filled with electronic chaos as Ben turned every piece of communication equipment on the ship into a localized jamming array. Enemy coordination collapsed as ships found themselves unable to talk to each other or receive orders from their commanders. Maya watched Admiral Vex's carefully planned ambush dissolve into confusion as her crew turned their greatest weaknesses into the galaxy's most unconventional weapons system. The Void Syndicate ships found themselves trying to target a vessel that flew like it was being piloted by someone who'd learned navigation from a fever dream, getting shot at by weapons that shouldn't have existed, and unable to communicate with anyone including themselves. It was glorious. "Admiral," Maya said, opening a channel to Vex's ship as the Cosmic Reject danced through his battle formation like a butterfly made of pure chaos, "I have a message for you." "What?" Vex snarled, his tentacles writhing with fury as his perfect ambush fell apart around him. Maya smiled. "Check your news feeds in about 10 minutes. The Cosmic Reject jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a very confused group of terrorists and one extremely angry admiral. It was time to finish this. Maya had always believed in the power of good timing, proper evidence, and strategic public humiliation. 10 minutes after escaping Admiral Vex's ambush, she put all 3 principles into practice. The broadcast went out simultaneously on every major galactic news network, every government communication channel, and for good measure, every advertising frequency Ben could accidentally hijack. Within minutes, the entire galaxy was watching Admiral Vex's own recorded communications with Void Syndicate leadership, complete with detailed financial records, with fleet movement coordinates, and his personal plans for eliminating human military influence. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. The Galactic Council went into emergency session. Admiral Vex's remaining supporters suddenly discovered urgent business in other star systems. 3 major news networks launched investigative reports into corruption within the military hierarchy. And Maya's communication console exploded with incoming messages from every major political figure in the galaxy, but each one desperately trying to be the first to congratulate her on exposing the conspiracy. Maya ignored them all and focused on the one transmission that actually mattered, Counselor Bletherick's. But looking like he'd swallowed something considerably more unpleasant than his usual diet of political ambition. "Commander Torres," Blethrix began, apparently having decided that her rank had been mysteriously restored sometime between his last attempt to have her killed and his current desire to avoid a public relations catastrophe. "The Council has reviewed the evidence you've provided, and we're prepared to offer you full reinstatement with appropriate commendations." Maya leaned back in her captain's chair, which Petra had reinforced with what appeared to be armor plating from a battle tank. "That's very generous, Counselor. What exactly are you offering?" "The full restoration of rank, command of a battle group, your choice of assignments, and official recognition for your service in exposing this conspiracy." It was everything Maya should have wanted. Command of real ships, real crews, real missions that mattered. The chance to return to the respectable military career they'd tried to destroy. Maya looked around the bridge of the Cosmic Reject, where Jake was successfully flying through hyperspace without hitting anything. Petra was making the coffee machine play classical music, and Ben was accidentally intercepting what appeared to be someone's love letters from the next galaxy over. "I appreciate the offer, Counselor," Maya said finally, "but I'm going to have to decline." The silence from the other end of the transmission was so complete that Maya wondered if Blethrix had suffered some kind of system failure. "I'm sorry," he said eventually. "Did you just refuse a promotion and full reinstatement?" "I did. See, the thing is, you've already given me exactly what I want." Maya gestured to her crew, who were currently engaged in their usual routine of barely controlled chaos and somehow making it work. "You want to talk about command assignments? I've got the perfect one. My crew and I are going to keep doing exactly what we've been doing, taking on the missions that are too weird, too dangerous, or too embarrassing for your regular military to handle. But that's punishment detail." "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like freedom." Maya cut the transmission before Blethrix could respond and opened a new channel to the galaxy's major news networks. "This is Commander Maya Torres aboard the starship Cosmic Reject," she announced, using the title that the Council could never officially acknowledge but could never quite take away. "My crew and I are available for any mission that requires unconventional solutions to impossible problems. Our rates are reasonable, our methods are questionable, and our success rate is 100%. Within an hour, they had 17 job offers. Within a day, they had a waiting list. Within a week, Maya found herself in the unique position of being the galaxy's most unofficial official problem solver. Governments that couldn't publicly acknowledge her existence were secretly sending her encrypted messages begging for help. Military commanders who'd never admit to knowing her name were quietly recommending her services to their superiors. The Galactic Council maintained the official position that Commander Torres was a loose cannon who operated outside proper channels. Unofficially, they kept her contact information in their emergency protocols folder. Maya Torres had become exactly what she'd always been, the person you called when the impossible needed to be done and you couldn't afford to fail. The only difference was that now she got to do it with a crew that turned chaos into an art form and a ship that ran on equal parts determination and divine intervention. Standing on the bridge of the Cosmic Reject as they headed toward their latest impossible mission, Maya realized that sometimes the best revenge wasn't getting your old life back. Sometimes the best revenge was discovering that your new life was everything you never knew you wanted. "Jake," she called out, "plot a course for the Centauri system. Apparently there's a diplomatic crisis involving hostile aliens, impossible physics, and a birthday party that's gotten completely out of hand." "My favorite kind of mission," Jake replied, grinning as he laid in the course. "Should I plan on crashing into anything?" "Only if the situation calls for it." The Cosmic Reject jumped to hyperspace, carrying the galaxy's most unlikely heroes toward another adventure that would probably end up in military textbooks as an example of what not to do, right next to a footnote explaining why it had worked perfectly. Maya Torres was no longer Captain Torres of the Galactic Fleet. She was Commander Torres of the Cosmic Reject, and that was infinitely better.